All right, welcome back. We are in Canto 12 today, Inferno 12. The previous canto, you'll remember, was Dante and Dante and Virgil. If only, that would be interesting, had Milton. Anyway, Dante and Virgil are sitting at the top of this cliff on the outside of the sixth circle and taking a break, letting the fumes, letting their senses acclimate to the stench from the fumes coming up from lower hell. And Virgil takes the time to explain the structure of hell and why, how the circles are ordered and why they're ordered in that particular way. And you'll remember that we're about to get into the seventh circle, which is broken up into three wheels. The first wheel, the outer wheel, being tyrants and robbers, those who used force in an unjust way, were violent against their neighbors and their neighbors' goods. So the middle one, the second wheel, is against self and self's goods. That's Canto 13. And then the blasphemers, the sodomites, and the usurers, those who are violent against God's nature, the God's possessions, which is nature, and then the works of our hands, the works of our ingenuity. That's in Cantos 14, 15, 16, and 17. So today is Canto 12, the tyrants and the robbers. So here we go. The place of our descent down the cliff face was mountainous, but what was before us would make any eye mad to avoid it. Like the landslide that wrecked the Adige in its flank on the side of Trent, either from an earthquake or failing foundations, and so shattered the cliff from the summit of the mountain whence it moved to the plain, that somehow one from above could come down. Such was the broken face of that abyss. But on the crust of that crumbling hollow, the infamy of Crete stretched itself out, who was conceived in the counterfeit cow. When he saw us, he bit himself in rage, as when anger breaks a man from within. Okay, so this is the Minotaur, the infamy of Crete, the child of Pasiphaë, who, interesting story, was so in love with a certain bull that she had Daedalus, the great inventor, craft a wooden cow, the shape of a cow, that would allow her to enter in and then be impregnated by the bull. Don't ask me how it worked. But she did this out of this lust, this crazy lust for this bull, for this animal. And through that insemination, the result was the Minotaur, and she gives birth to the Minotaur, who is this half bull, bull's head, and half man, man's body. So this distinction between a bull's head and a man's body is important. So I'm noting that here, and we'll come back to it. My sage shouted to him, "Perhaps you think the Duke of Athens has come once again, who, in the world above, put you to death. Beast, be gone, for this one does not come here, having been trained by your sister. Instead, he journeys forth to see your punishments." He's referring to the story of how the Duke of Athens was able to get past the Minotaur, who was guarding the labyrinth, and make it through the labyrinth. That's the story in the background here, but that's not this guy. Dante is not him, so there's no reason for the Minotaur to be mad. But he's just mad anyway because he is an emblem, a symbol of violence. So just as Cerberus, the three-headed dog, the original Fluffy, was a symbol of gluttony, and Plutus, a symbol of wealth or avarice, so the Minotaur is a symbol of violence. Like a bull that breaks loose from its tether, in that hour it suffers the lethal blow, staggers about and moves without knowledge, so I saw the Minotaur thrash about. That watchful one shouted, "Run to the gap! It is good to get down while he rages." Thus we made our way down through the ruin of these rocks, the same ones that were shifting underneath my feet from their new burden. I walked pensive. My master said to me, "You are perhaps thinking of this ruin blocked by the bestial wrath I just snuffed out. Now, I want you to know the other time I was here, going down into deep hell, this cliff had not yet fallen to pieces. But certainly, if I rightly discern, just before he came, and raised up from Dis the great spoils there in the highest circle, every rock of the deep and vile valley trembled, so that I thought the universe might be feeling love, by which some believe the world often crumbles into chaos. It was at that moment this ancient cliff, here and elsewhere, crumbled down to rumble. So this place, this hell, the infrastructure of hell, the landscape of hell, was at one time put together and built in a nice way. Now it's in shambles. It's a ruin. There's landslides and there's cliffs and there's walls that are falling down and things are broken. And Virgil's saying, if I discern rightly, this happened maybe about 50 years after I got here, when he came down, right? So he coming down is the harrowing of hell, Christ descending on Holy Saturday. And so when he says just before, he's referring to the crucifixion. The death of Christ was the death of sin and death. The death of Christ was the destruction of hell and hell's power. And Dante is demonstrating that and imaging that through this rough and ruinous landscape that reacted to or felt the trembles of Christ's death and was broken at his death. But look down the valley, for we approach that river of blood in which boil the souls of those who injure others through violence. O blind cupidity and senseless wrath that so spur us on in this shortened life, and so cruelly steep us ever after. So cupidity is a reference to all of the incontinent sins from the first 5 circles, and then senseless wrath is referring to this circle. So he's summed up his whole journey thus far in that phrase: blind cupidity, lust, avarice, greed, and then senseless wrath. This what is being punished in this hell, in this level of hell. I saw a spacious trench, bent in an arch as if embracing an entire plain, according to what my escort had said. Between the trench and the foot of the cliff, centaurs ran in a troop, armed with arrows, as they used to hunt in the world above. Now this is really interesting. Centaurs are, of course, horses with a human torso and head. So we have a human head and a beast body, whereas the Minotaur is the beast's head and a human body. And this transition from beast head to human head, human body to beast body, is an interesting switch. What this is signifying is that upper hell, like where the Minotaur is on that plane, that is the same plane as the other circles, upper hell is where the mind has been made bestial in its rationality, which is to say its non-rationality, its irrationality. It has submitted its reason to its lusts, and so its mind is acting more like a beast. That's incontinence and the things going on in upper hell. This transition now to a beast's body with a man's head is signifying that these are sins that include some level of intelligence, some ability to reason is mixed in with the passion of violence. So it's not simply a blind cupidity. It's not simply irrational behavior. There is some rationality here, but it's still mixed with the passions, hence the mixed nature of the Minotaur and the centaurs. Seeing us come down the cliff, each one rested, and 3 from their ranks took themselves forward, with bows and shafts previously chosen. One shouted from afar, "To what torment come you, that you descend the broken bank? Speak where you stand, if not, I draw the bow." My master said, Our answer we will make to Chiron, there beside you. To your hurt, your will has always been over hasty. he nudged me and said, that one is Nessus, who for the beautiful Deianira died, but made for himself his own revenge. The one in between, gazing on his breast, is the grand Chiron, who taught Achilles. Last is Pholus, who was so full of rage. Around the trench they go by the thousands, shooting shafts at the soul that from the blood uproots himself more than his blame accords. So he's identifying these centaurs, Chiron, of course, being the most famous one, the tutor of Achilles. And they go round this circle of blood and shoot arrows at the inhabitants of that river of blood that either rise up higher or drop down lower than is right. So they are, their punishment, what Dante is signifying here is the punishment fits the crime exactly. This is precise judgment. Neither too far into the river nor too far out of the river is their destiny, is their fate. Just right, at the right amount of the river. They are submerged just to the right level in accordance with their sins. We ourselves drew near to those agile beasts. Chiron took an arrow, and with the notch he drew back his beard to behind his jaw, which is just a lovely detail, right? Taking an arrow and pulling his beard back behind his jaw. With his great mouth exposed, he turned aside to his companions and said, "Have you seen? He who stands behind moves what he touches. The feet of the dead do not so disturb." My good leader, already at that breast where the two natures, man and horse, were joined, answered, "Truly he lives, and thus alone I must reveal to him all this dark veil. Necessity urges us, not delight." One left off singing her hallelujahs to urge on me this uncommon duty. He is no thief, nor I a thievish soul. But now, by that virtue by which I moved my feet along such a savage pathway, grant us a guide, with us in company, that he might show the place where one might ford, and that he might place this one on his back, not being a spirit passing through this air. Chiron turned upon his right breast and said to Nessus, "Turn and so guide them, and if any troop blocks you, make them stand aside." Now, with our trusted escort, we moved on beside the bank of boiling vermilion, where those boiling souls made their high-pitched shrieks. I saw people immersed to their eyebrows. "These are the tyrants," the grand centaur said, "that thieve to themselves both blood and plunder. Here they weep over their cruel injuries." Not their own injuries done to them, but the injuries that they inflicted on others. "There is Alexander, Dionysius the savage, that gave Sicily such pain. The forehead over there with such black hair is Azzolino. The other blonde one is Obiso d'Este, who indeed was killed by his stepson in the world, up in the world." Then I turned toward the poet, and he said, "Let him be to you first, and I second." A short way after, the centaur stood still over a people that seemed to rise out of that boiling runnel up to the throat. He pointed to a shade set apart, saying, "That one there split within the womb of God, the heart that still drips blood above the Thames." Then I saw a people that held both the head and then the torso out of the river. Of those I recognized more than a few. So the ones he sees first are completely submerged, and then up to their neck, and now up to now the river is down to their torso, and so we're going around in a circle, and souls are increasingly rising up according again to the punishment that precisely fits their sin. Then that blood made itself shallower still, so that it only cooked the sinner's feet, and thus made our passage over the ditch. "Indeed, as you see on this side of it, the stream of boiling blood always grows less," said the centaur. "I want you to believe that on this other side it pushes down the bottom lower and lower, until it comes to where tyranny must suffer. There, divine justice pierces Attila, that scourge of the earth, Pyrrhus and Sextus, and throughout eternity milks the tears unlocked by the boiling of those two Reniers, da Cornetto and Pazzo both, two who made such war upon the highways. Then he turned, crossing back over the ford. The two last mentioned, the two Reniers, were highwaymen. They were the stagecoach robbers who would, with bandanas up and black hats and guns wailing, and would hold up stagecoaches. Obviously, the 13th century version of that. So here again, we see those who inflicted injury on others, unjust injury on others through force, either on the person or their goods, either by being a tyrant like Attila the Hun or Alexander the Great. These are two notable men who are featured here, or by stealing other people's goods like the Reniers, the highwaymen. This is where they are punished. This is where that form, that particular kind of injustice is punished. And the punishment is to be soaking in blood, right? And the connection should be obvious. You made a life of spilling other people's blood, and you are now doomed for eternity to soak in the blood in which you spilled, right? So there is the first wheel of circle 7. We'll get to the second wheel and the suicides in the next canto. So until then, we'll see you.